Hello guys, NautoAis here, and I want to give my thoughts on the Dragon Quest HD 2D remake. Of course, if you've been following the story, there have been a lot of modification that fans worldwide are not happy. Of course, the infamous censorship and people don't know what's going on, why Square Enix is doing this. Of course, if you saw my video on SNK versus Capcom Chaos, a follow-up on, well, not only the game was improved, but they finally put in the promo art from Ogura, and it was the uncensored version. I kind of mentioned about Yuji Horii about the situation with this game. Well, during Tokyo Game Show 2024, they were in an interview. So here's the backstory of what happened. So there's a 90-minute interview interviewing Yuji Horii, the creator of Dragon Quest, and Kazuhiko Torishima, a former editor of Shonen Jump. So they gave them the situation, gave them, they got an interview about the game itself. And one part of the interview was, well, if you're noticing there was some sort of modification with the game, i.e. censorship, what are your thoughts? And the answer they gave, and again, what happened was before was basically the translation. So before even I continue, apparently there was a follow-up that said, oh, it was mistranslated. However, a lot of Japanese and people who knows Japanese said, no, the translation was almost close. There was only one word that they made a mistake. And then instead of saying Puritan, that's what the word is, it accidentally said sex education. But that particular word was enough for, well, Square Enix to say, yeah, you got to remove the video. And the people behind it, they have to remove the video. They have to issue an apology. And I was watching Smash JT's video about it. It's kind of right that they're probably trying to cover their bases. So, hey, look, we're just putting the news out there. But if the company themselves, Square Enix, said, hey, we don't like it, they don't want to offend them and they don't want to get fired. And here's another thing here, and I'm going to be a little bit political about it, is the cultural. Believe it or not, to some extent, and I could be wrong, I'm not speaking for anyone. I am speaking for myself because I kind of did this when I was young. They were taught me about this culture in Asian territory. And one thing, believe it or not, is that it's rude to offend someone, whether friends or stranger. Again, this is just my experience when I was growing up. That was always been the culture that you don't offend anyone because it's just rude. I mean, it is what it is. And my theory about this one is that not only do they want to get fired, so they're covering their bases, also in culture-wise, it's rude to offend someone who's giving you time. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, that's why in the West, you kind of noticing a little bit political here again, so apologies in advance. You see people said, stop being offended and stop feeling bad to offend someone. Well, it is a culture in the West, but like I said, in Asian territory to some extent is that it is not good to offend someone. It's considered rude, disrespect, and again, in some culture, believe it or not, respect is a very key thing. Just throwing out there. So that's why you kind of notice, like, the people behind the interview, they were kind of say, hey, we screwed up, we apologize. Yes, you might say, well, don't apologize. Different country, different region, different culture, it is what it is. So anyway, back to the interview with Yuji Horii and Kazuhiko Torishima. So the two major points that I want to give my thoughts on is, first, the censorship and regulation. So the reason apparently that the game is censored is it is regulation to some extent, but however, apparently they're also kind of saying that because the influence on the West. So they're trying to market this game worldwide. So they're trying to find that quote-unquote global market, the global standard. Remember that former Sony CEO basically said, why are you censoring stuff on PlayStation? And one of the answer was global standard, which is, again, there's not really it. It's basically, I'm lazy to modify each game for each region. Let's just make it universal to make it easy for ourselves. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate kind of did it with Palutena's design. It is what it is. Because, yeah, it is influence to the West. It could be regulation. And it also could be zero, because some people say, no, it's not a zero. But possibly it's also the zero because in 2014, Sakurai basically did an interview about he was having a hard time dealing with the Zero because Nintendo wanted the game to be Zero A for everyone because come on, it's a Nintendo fighting game, and they showed Palutena, and then he was told, turn the character around, we want to see the panties, and the reason is because they're concerned that for E for 10 or Zero A, you're showing panties. We can't have that. And apparently that's what it is in Zero now, that it is still becoming strict. Even Sakurai was not happy about it. So it could be the Zero. ESRB, from what I understand, was a little bit open that one with Super Smash Bros. Wii U. But I don't know what happened that one. Because, I mean, the opposite is on the 3DS version, because it has to be E for 10, they got rid of Traja's trophy because they said it was going to raise the rating board. Because Yuji Horii said the reason why they had to do this modification is the Square Enix wanted the game to be sold in an old age group. And it is true that if you raise the price, it might not sell well. And you may say, oh, that's just a myth, that's fake. Well, it could be not. But it kind of really showed to some extent. I mean, Super Smash Bros. Melee and Brawl in the West was T, because at the time there was no E for 10. And from what I understand, and I could be wrong, that the sales, even though it was good, it wasn't a lot from what I understand versus Super Smash Bros. For the N64, because there were some concerned parents that basically said, well, I'm not going to get this game for my kid because it's a T rating. And believe it or not, whether you like it or not, a lot of people, the general consumer, do take the ESRB, the age rating system, seriously, whether you like it or not. For me, personally, I mean, common sense, because, you should know what the game is if you do your research. And, of course, I'm in my 40s, so it doesn't matter. But would you let your kid play a T-rated game, M-rated game? Well, that's up to you. But at least they have the rating board so you don't sue them. That's what it is. So that's one of the reasons they said that they had to do that. It was expected that it was sort of a regulation that because they want to sell it worldwide, they don't want to raise it to either in Japan, Zero B or Teen, because they want this game to have the lowest common denominator, meaning remove all option to make it so common that everyone can get the game without any problem. So that's why. And then Kazuhiko Torishima basically said that, hey, look at it. It's so frustrating because a lot of the decision was based on the West that's affecting Japan. I agree. It is an unfortunate. And the biggest one, he said that the reason sometimes they have to do this and the company have to do it, and this is what Sony said when I talk about their censorship policy, they don't want to get sued. The company was afraid they might get sued and they have to deal with lawyers and insurance, technically trying to protect themselves. That's really it. I mean, it's bullshit. And to some extent, even that Yuji said, for crying out loud, and I've been saying this, fictional thing does not hurt real life society. Yuji was saying the same thing. They're fictional. They're not real. So calm the flip down about it. But again, they did it. So the interview itself was powerful. It kind of showed that not everyone are on board what Square Enix is doing. Even Tetsuya, the guy who did Final Fantasy VII and some of the character design in the Final Fantasy series, even said that the reason I designed beautiful characters because the general audience, believe it or not, the common gamer like to look at beautiful thing. I mentioned that before. They don't want to see something that's reality. I'm sorry. There's the reason why it's called fantasy. Video games, it's an escapism. They don't want to think about reality when they play video games. Just saying there. So, again, everybody been saying it. General, common gamers want to see beautiful things. It is what it is. And, especially when they did with the famous female warrior, her clothes was iconic because people had to explain why. Because it is based on a comic 300, which is Gladiator, who basically barely wear armor, because the story behind that, if you didn't know, is that they're so powerful, they're so strong, they're so skillful that we don't need armor. We're not going to get hurt. We're not going to get scratched. We're not going to get cut, whatever. That we don't need armor, and less armor means we can move better. That's the same deal with the female warrior. Why not with the male? Well, he has no sleeve in his armor. Okay, maybe they probably made him into, maybe the male also have design without pants, but that's a different story. And again, why is a female warrior like that? Yes, it is fan service, but behind it, a lot of people said this, and I think even the fans even said it. I don't know if Akira Toriyama even said it, but the lore is, because they are very skillful, that they don't need armor to defend themselves. They don't need that protection I know that sounds weird because they're skillful. That's the lore about it. Again, it is what it is, but like they said, it could have been regulation. Why is Square Enix even doing this censorship, this political decision? Well, like I said before, the lowest common denominator, hopefully they'll make the money. And again, if you don't know what's happening with Square Enix right now, they are sort of in a Final Fantasy tax because Final Fantasy 16 and Rebirth 7 didn't do good. They didn't make their money. Yes, it's not the game because it's bad. It was on the PlayStation 4 exclusively. Not everyone has the PlayStation 5. Could have been Steam from the get-go, but they decided to go with Epic Games. Don't know why. Maybe it was an exclusivity deal with Sony. Who knows? So they're probably trying to recuperate, so they're doing whatever they take to trying to get that lowest common denominator. If they have to go political for it, have no shame. It is what it is. Kind of like if you watch the Netflix Mr. McMahon, he did whatever he does to make money, sponsor, PG era. It is what it is. So, my thoughts. It is unfortunate, but again, when it comes to regulation, you can't do anything about it. It sucks. Because, again, if you want your game to be in a certain age rating, you got to follow that rule. Can it go higher? Yeah. But will it sell more? Maybe. Maybe not. Who knows? So another one, and this very touchy subject, is the gender. So even Yuji talked about the gender situation. So for me personally, I don't really care about it. Male, female, whatever, third option, fourth option, type whatever. Because people even poking fun of type A, type B, and I said alpha, beta. Some people even said type 1 and type 2. What? So now they're diabetes gender. I mean, there's a lot of joke about it because it's really just getting old. It's tiring about it. Why not just make it simple, male, female? But, there are going to be people that are going to be concerned, going to go political about that. I'm not going to touch that. If you want to know about it, there is a lot of this information on the internet. The idea is they're trying to represent everyone. And sometimes there are some that represent differently. Not going to touch that. So for me personally, I don't care about it. It's like whatever. Type A, type B, 1, 2, male, female, alpha, beta, Jack, Jill, Juan, Costello. Okay, I don't know what I'm talking about there. But this is something that's interesting. I don't know if it's true or not because it's kind of weird that Kazuhiko Torishima even said about the gender situation that apparently, and again, I could be wrong, but this is what he's saying, that the ESRB, apparently there's a rule that if your game is E410 or lower, you cannot put a male or female gender if the game has that option. You can't put it there. That's why Splatoon doesn't have it now. Animal Crossing, the Western version, doesn't have it. And again, I don't know if it's true or not. If it is true, that is something interesting and could be concerning, depends on your perspective, that apparently if your game's E410 or below, you cannot have a gender identification. Can't say male or female. Kind of weird in my opinion, but again, not touching that because that is, whether you like it or not, especially in the West, that is a very, very touchy subject. And if you're someone like kind of irking about it or whatever, but it doesn't really bother you that much, it is just best to stay away from it. Just read, find information, make your call, make your decision, whatever. But a lot of time, it is just best to stay away from this thing because it is a very, very touchy subject. Because, of course, there are some that when they give their opinion about it, they're not happy of what their response was, even calling them inappropriate name. It is what it is. It's the internet. My only advice is don't take the internet seriously. Just saying there. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the situation with Kazuhiko Torishima and Yuji Horii about the situation with Dragon Quest HD 2D remake. That, yeah, it was regulation. It was Square Enix company, the executive probably doing whatever it takes to make money. They don't like it, but they got to do it because it's regulation to some extent. Let's see what happens in the long run. Is it going to sell? Probably. Am I going to buy it? Oh, when it comes in sale, because I just like buying games on sale. That's just me because I already have a lot of game backlog. Heck, I still need to finish Dragon Quest 11, if you know what I mean. And so I got too many games. A lot of games. Backlog. Still trying to finish also Final Fantasy 7 Rebirth. I'm almost to the end. I don't know why I'm not playing it right now. Anyway, with that, I'll see you guys later.